Recorded May 5th, 2025. Good afternoon, Brody. Good afternoon, Rick. How are you guys doing?
Whoa! Go Jets, go, baby! Yeah!
Doing well. I don't have that kind of energy that Brody has, but yeah, a few more cups of coffee, I might.
It doesn't take much for Brody. He's been waiting for this. I think the Jets were close 2 years ago or something. And Game 7, or maybe a highly contested.
Oh, you haven't seen the highlights and you didn't watch the game, Edward? Well, I mean, that's a big fail. Everybody listening to this, watching this right now, needs to go and look up the highlights to Game 7, Jets versus Blues, right now and witness hockey history. Hockey history. All right? Tied to the game with 1.6 seconds to go in the third period. Tie game. Place goes nuts, and it goes to double overtime.
Wow.
Was the empty net goal that you guys tied the game?
There's no empty net goal. There was definitely some goaltenders involved.
Yeah. What's up, Ray?
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, everyone?
That's a great show. Wow! Go Jets, go!
I don't understand sports, so I get very confused, and I'm just like, yes, team spirit. I don't know what to do. I don't have a sports team. I don't know what like ping pong, foosball, hacky sack, yo-yo. These are things like pogs. These are more my speed. Yes.
That's old school pogs.
I'm an old lady.
I had one of those light up blade slammers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is how exciting. Yeah. I have more empathy for the athletic fandom, because as soon as you started describing your slammer, I was like, yeah. That's like,
dude, I should just go buy some pogs just to have them.
I can just send you some of my.
You've kept your pogs. I got in trouble at school because I stole pogs from the daycare, and then I had to give up all my pogs as punishment, so I was in trouble.
Yeah. They assume my troll collection is for my child, and I'm just like, yeah.
For your child. Yeah, for your child. Yeah, who I'm sure is going to be right into pogs. Yeah. Well, listen, Ray, you can join our sports team's fan base right now. IW, an honorary member of the Winnipeg Jets fan club. Amazing. You and your team just had hockey history happen. Yeah. So no better time to get
Winnie?
involved.
Like, what's the little name? Is it Winnie? Like a little, what's the cute little nickname?
Winnie the Pooh.
I'm a Winnie.
We have a mascot called Mickey Moose.
What? Okay. Fun.
Mickey Moose.
Well, I feel like that's copyright infringement, and Disney should examine it.
It's not. The farm team, before the Jets were lost. So we're just going to just derail all of the security to hockey, I guess, which is great. So the Jets left Winnipeg in the 90s because of money, and the Canadian dollar was crap, and they couldn't support the team anymore. And I donated my piggy bank to the Save the Jets Foundation, and I got a calendar. I got a signed calendar, and they had to leave anyways. So pretty much Gary Bettman's fault entirely. And then we had an AHL team called the Manitoba Moose, okay, which is a big picture of moose, right? You know what a moose is? Moosies? Moose are? Yeah. Okay. And then the mascot for the moose was Mickey Moose, right? He's a big moose, and he's going around, he's getting everybody jazzed up. And then the Jets came back when the Atlanta Thrashers went bankrupt, and we bought the team.
Atlanta Thrashers?
Yeah, that was Atlanta's second attempt at a team. They sold their first team to Calgary, the Atlanta Flames. And
this is. I feel like I want you to do a History Channel.
You are. This is history, okay? And then they came back, and our small little city got its team back. And over the last few years, we have been cursed by Mark Scheifele getting hurt or suspended and getting out of the playoffs in the first round, after we went to the West Final, only to be defeated by the Vegas Golden Knights, who came in their inaugural year, went to the Stanley Cup, and they ruined us going to the Western Conference Final. They beat us in 5 games, and we haven't gone deep in the playoffs since. And then yesterday, in this bloodbath of a series where St. Louis was intentionally taking out our top guys. They intentionally took out Scheifele. They intentionally took out Morrissey. There's elbows, there's fights, there's blood everywhere. People are getting horribly injured. And in the game 7, we came back and won it. We tied it in the last seconds of the game, and we won it in double overtime. You are now a fan of this.
Yes, no, I am. The way that you just described it, I feel like I would tune in if you did like a sports.
I mean, if he was the play-by-play commentator, the color guy, I'm like, yeah. Very good on your history. And the reason I know somewhat something about hockey because being an Atlanta native, I was back in the day. I used to go down to the Omni and watch the Atlanta Flames play, and then that franchise got a little bit of partially defunct, and then the Atlanta Thrashers were a team that were up and coming until one of our star players had a very bad accident with another star player and had to sort of, go to another team, and we lost the team. But we have the Gwinnett Gladiators, which is our minor league team that plays here, north of Atlanta. So they're pretty good. But hey, let's get going. We don't have Rod. Yay!
Yeah, I know Rod. Go Jets, go.
But we have a better replacement. Rick, give us a rundown. What you been working on, bro?
Me?
No, Rick.
Oh, Rick. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry,
Ahead,
it cut out there. I've been trying to work on some workflows for customers with Security Copilot. It's one of those things where the art of the possible is very easy for me to come up with just because I've been in the product for a year and a half now, and a lot of folks they have a hard time coming up with how to leverage the platform effectively. So I've been doing that, creating prompt books and some logic apps.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the way that I can conceptualize it, not nearly as good as you are. I got an old Circa 95 mind map book that I have to use. I have to write it out, right? Trying to do it in a product, I cannot do it. Like get on the whiteboard and say, and I just write out, I want to do this. And then I sort of work backwards and do it. But this was a quiet weekend. I really didn't do any labbing out, cleaned up a bunch of stuff in the lab. Just vegged out this weekend, enjoyed the weather a little bit, was determined to be as technology free as I could this weekend purposely, and just to level set a little bit. Knocked out a couple of certifications that would do because I do not want to go back and retake them. So that was easy online, get it done, right? I think it was an AZ 500, MS 500, just be done. So those are done. I think I am going to take a shot at the SC 401 in beta. I think you should too, Brody, because that's the only one that you and I didn't have our little contest that we took against each other. We only do certifications in the fall, right? In the winter when it's not busy.
I don't remember. I got one coming up. I think I got to do. It might be the 400 by end of June.
It's the 401.
Yeah, I heard it's the 401 and the 402. Yeah, so review one.
I didn't realize they broke them out.
Yeah, it was recent that happened.
Yeah, it's just recent. I think they're going to go ahead and deprecate and retire the 400. You'll get a chance to take the exam if you've already been registered for it. I don't think you may be able to register for the 400 in about 2 weeks. You will have to take the 401.
Well, I better go renew it now then, because I have a very bad habit of waiting to the last minute and then stressing my face off. So I might as well just go do that. And Ray, sorry, you had a question and I missed it.
Oh no, I was asking if it was for a renewal or like a new certification.
Renewal. Yeah, you got it. Renewal. I didn't take any new ones over the winter. Yeah, having a new kid takes a lot of time on your hands. No, it's not on you. It's on me because I was like, I should take them. And my manager was like laughing at me on our last connect, on our mid-year connect. He's like, you're not taking any new certifications. You're not
having a kid. Just I mean, like it takes time. I'm getting back, so I just I completed my capstone. Thanks to everybody's support and much to the relief of my instructor. She was like, you need yes, you did okay. You did good. I was like, hey, you're like, we're good. I got a passing grade. So, woo, amazing. I used to be like really neurotic about my grades, and now I'm just like, whatever gets me there, whatever gets me over the line.
If the passing score is 700 and you score 701, that's what the band.
A win's a win, whether it's by an inch or mine. Let's do it.
I tend to think that if you're not busy, then you get more neurotic about how great your score is when you're busy. You're just like, it's done. It's
Yeah.
fast.
You're right,
I'm
right.
moving on to the
It's
next
done,
job.
man.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
good, no more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like writing my capstone as my daughter is like, Mama, 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 why is the sky blue? Mama, Mama. Like I'm just with the phishing scams, baby. The fish, like I'm trying to balance it all. But good, we crossed that off the list. And now thinking through the certification series month, right? Show us your certs. I'm taking that seriously. So I think I'm gonna go after I call it the CIS, but the CISSP. I feel like that sounds
CISP.
Yeah.
CISP.
That's
Okay,
a tough
we're gonna
one.
do it that way.
Yeah.
Fine, right? Tomato.
CISP is kind of like a thing you get on your skin or something.
That's a cyst.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
That's
So, I like CISP.
If
Yeah.
you go for your CISSP, I'll sponsor you. Sure.
Oh, thank you. You're
I
like,
will-
she does not merit entry. Anyone but
He's fake.
Mary.
Yeah.
Do not allow.
I do not let this thing expire at all.
Yeah. No, that's
Right here to remind me.
Have a
I'm not going to go through this again.
I will never write that test again. That was the
Yeah.
most stressed I've ever been going into a test.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But so seemed like everybody had a low tech weekend. We took time off to get back in, but hey, we're not late. We're 15 minutes in. We have some outstanding guests that are sitting in the green room eating up all the snacks and drinking up all the Molson and Labatt beer in the back, right? So,
God, Edward. JP just got up and left from after hearing that. He's like, I'm out of here. Maybe I'm going to go get a Labatt or a Molson. Yes.
Yeah, I had a Labatt. No, I had a Molson Triple X.
Oh, he's got one. Here we go. Oh, a Bud Light. There you go.
Yeah, man. I got to get back up to Canada. I should have just stayed in Canada when I lived there.
That's allowed, JP. You can have a beer here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get our guest on. Ray, do you have anything else? We good?
Yeah, Ray. Anything else? Did you handle all the action items we gave you in the last show, Ray?
Well, she did mention it. Certification month's going to be on us before we know it. It'll be October, and we really want to make. I think we're going to have 8 shows that month. I think we need 8 shows that month.
I hope it takes forever to get October. I want to be outside.
It will be October when you wake up in the morning.
No.
Time is flying, man.
Please, I'm like stressed.
No.
I'm like,
No, Ray, you and I, we're going to double down on that
October.
and write it all out. I got a bunch of ideas on that piece. I do owe you.
we got to work on the presentation. So I saw Miss Femke in person and the MVPs, Mona and Yurin and Morton, and amazing.
RSA.
Yes, how they're running Experts Live New York. Not Defender Experts Live, Experts Live New York. And they're like, oh, you submitted. I was like, I did submit. And they're like, not bad. So we'll see. We'll see what I'm excited. So we got to flesh that out.
Everybody that runs that program is a friend of the show, a friend of you. You're in, right? I haven't submitted a darn thing.
Could you imagine if they're also like not Ray Merrick? Like never, but not this lady. And I would understand.
I would still show up and crash the place. I'll crash the
It'll be fun. It's going to be a good time.
I am coming. I have not submitted a paper. I think
you have submitted. You have.
Oh, when yours, the one we were talking about?
That's ours. Yes.
Oh, well.
That's like the only way it will probably be approved. They're like, oh, it is okay. Yes. This makes good.
This is like when you team up with somebody to do schoolwork and one person does all the work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's how you do it. So I need to give you my content for the abstract and write it. I did think through what you were talking about. You were very much on point because I just did a little in-person survey about those who are running, the Microsoft security tools, have Intune, but still, have not really deployed attack surface reduction policies and rules like you thought. And if they are, they're only a report. Action.
Audit. Yeah. No, it's a real thing. It is a real thing, and there are reasons why it's not adopted. So it's not to be polarizing here or undermine like the legitimate hardships organizations encounter when they are on their Defender deployment journey. That said, I agree with you. I think it is a very relevant topic to explore and to share with the community.
When you first told me about it, I was trying to poke holes in our abstract thesis. I'm like, well, that's not demonstrably true, Ed. You just assume because someone bought the product, they deploy one aspect of it in there. So I just started calling some buddies around and like, yeah, we have more of these in, audit mode than we have in actual enforcement. but I don't see why you can't, because when you can scope these policies down to, either machine groups or administrative groups, whatever else, to a group of machines, you limit the impact of it. If they have a C in their title, probably don't do it, right? If they have board member in their title, let's not try on them, right? Let's go try on somebody.
Not ring zero. You don't ring zero, but you want them to get the extra special high touch, no?
Yeah, I'm a fan of being gainfully employed. So let's not do that. But we'll sit down. I'll put a plan session on. We got a little bit of time. I got one more road show. Hey, thank you, Rick. I am going to be doing one more Shadow Hunter Capture the Flag event this year, maybe two, and also Security Co-Pilot Flight School. Rick has graciously volunteered. I just delivered one here in Atlanta. It was outstanding. He's going to meet me in Charlotte, and we're going to deliver one here next week, and it'll be fun. And we'll sit down, Rick, you and I'll debrief about it, man. It's not rocket science. It's, if I could do it, I'm dumbing in a bag of rocks. It'll be that for you, right? So well,
some pretty smart rocks.
Give yourself too much credit, and I get it. I saw your face, Brody. So let's get our guest in. So we're gonna go ahead and add our guest in. Hey, look at this. We got
two guests.
Two guests. Two, because two is better than one.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I mean, we know Miguel. I mean, Miguel, I that's where I'm going if the zombie apocalypse happens and I'm in his neck of the woods, going to Miguel's house. And then we've got JP, who's new to the show, who I met at a bar during Ignite on the referral from a friend, and we talked into the hours and convinced him to come on a podcast. So JP, that's my terrible introduction of you. Why don't you do your own amazing introduction, and then we can chat about work.
So is my background backwards or is it forwards?
It's forwards.
No,
you got it, buddy.
Cycle.
I can read a Bluecycle.
You're good.
It's
all
not
right. It's backwards to me.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I kind of want to talk hockey for a minute.
Please, that'd be great.
So while you were talking, I was looking at the brackets, and so there's no one else I could root for except the Jets because I'm a Sabres fan. And the last time the Sabres were, I don't know, maybe good 20 years ago, but like the last time they were really good when they went to the Cup in '99, and Brett Hull scored a goal with his foot in the crease, and we lost it, in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup in triple overtime.
Right.
And that was the last time the Sabres were any good. But I even in college I wrote a paper on the Stanley Cup.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love when the Sabres played the Sens back in the day, man, when it was like Emery fighting them. It was great.
What class did you write a paper for hockey?
I don't even remember. It was some literature. It was like an English composition class.
Okay. It was tell us about your favorite memory. And you're
you had to research something. You had to research something. And so I had to find all these, like references of like the Lord Stanley brought this cup to Canada and it became this thing. And I learned a lot of cool stuff along the way that I didn't know. But growing up in Buffalo, I'm like a quarter Canadian. Like I grew up like 15 minutes from the border.
That's how that works. Okay. Got it.
Just over the bridge.
And I grew up listening to like Toronto radio. I grew up a tragically hip fan. I grew up into, Our Lady Peace, like all the Canadian stuff, was also in Buffalo. So we kind of got the best of both worlds growing up.
Man, peak Our Lady Peace was perfect.
Oh yeah, right. And we used to go up to Toronto when we were like not even 18, because I was born in 1970 or 76. We could chalk our IDs to a 0, and then we would go up to the bars in Toronto. Like we drive an hour and a half to like hope we could get into bars, but we never had trouble doing it. And we go drinking, and then come home the next morning.
Perfect.
So, living next to Canada was awesome.
I'm glad the statute of limitations are over.
And I know, right? The advent of Bluecycle.
These things. So, if someone was to ask me, Ed, tell me about Bluecycle. What?
Well, how about let's start about how we got to Bluecycle.
Okay.
So in 2012, I was a CIO at a company in Rochester, New York, where I live again today. And some of you might have heard of ShmooCon before. It's like a hacker conference in DC that just wrapped up. So I had met Bruce and Heidi, who run it. And one thing led to another, and I got really into cycling, which I was into when I was a kid. And I sent Bruce an email it was probably like June, and I'm like, hey, what if we did a bike ride at DEF CON? Just like another, event, because they were growing like crazy. They have a million events. And he replies to me like 2 days later, like, I just did all this research and like, I don't think we can like bike to DEF CON this year, but like, let's do it in a few years. And that turned into, so we started the DEF CON bike ride in 2011. That turned into planning for a cross country bike trip in 2013. So I ended up quitting my job because they wouldn't give me the next summer off. And I started consulting. And so I was flying around the world, fixing crappy SIEM installations. And I learned a whole ton of stuff through that. So I flew like 200,000 miles that year. I then I took the summer off of the bike ride. It was awesome. Story for another day. But then we went and like I went back, I did more consulting. And in the fall, I started to realize that I'd probably seen like 30 SOCs in like 7-8 months, and that companies didn't have the people, the process, the tools, the skill sets to really respond to alerts or handle incidents. So I had the bright idea of starting a company, and the company was called Syncurity, so like SYN-curity, and we started out as like case manager for the SOC or like Jira for the SOC. And so this is in like late 2013, and one thing led to another. I tried to raise money in upstate New York. Didn't work out too well. I then went to, so then I moved to Washington, D.C. And my first customer gave me a bunch of money. He bought a license before I wrote a line of code. And we got into this accelerator called Mach 37, which is a cybersecurity project accelerator. And that's kind of, so the bike ride was like one thing that like pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like I literally quit a job over it. I had no, it had to work out, right? Then I, out of the blue, I had 2 weeks notice to move me, my girlfriend, and her son to DC to go start the accelerator. Like get him into a new school, move, do all this crazy stuff. But I can't say enough good things about the accelerator and what I learned, like about product management, about go to market, like all those things that don't always get talked about in this form. But like when you're a vendor and you need to go launch something, it's hard. And it's like when you see a great vendor, there's years of execution under the hood there that you don't ever see. So anyways, fast forward to 2020. Long story short, we ran out of money a couple times. Everything was crazy, but we ended up selling to a company called Swimlane, we pivoted into SOAR, which everyone here knows what SOAR means: security orchestration, automation, response. And then the crazy part was I was really naive. Like our competitors, like Oliver Friedrichs from Phantom, the Demisto guys, the Simplify guys, this wasn't their first rodeo. I had no clue what I was doing when I started my company. And I had raised like, $2 million, and I was super thrilled. And like Phantom had raised $4 million, followed by $22 million. And, Demisto raised, I think, $4 million, followed by $26 million. And here I am competing against, the old resilient systems that IBM bought, competing against Phantom and Demisto, and we're winning deals, but we were just undercapitalized. We couldn't like scale the way we needed to. So anyways, we ran out of money a couple of times, and then after the second time, we sold to a company called Swimlane, which is based in Denver, and so that's that. The day after we closed on April 14th, 2020, Bluecycle started April 15th. So now we're to Bluecycle. So
nice origin story.
But yeah, it's a cool story. Like I feel like I'm proud of all the stuff I went through. There's a whole lot of crap that I didn't even talk about. I got sued, all this crazy stuff happened. But, it was academically fascinating and an emotional train wreck.
Well, it sounds like my last 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And so I feel you, man.
I cried.
I will say that everybody that's like a serial entrepreneur, they always say like, fail fast. Like they go through multiple iterations of trials and tributes before they feel success. And it's all of those things that you went through that make the future that much easier for you.
Oh, 100%. I agree. And I mentor a lot of like early stage founders. And one of those things I tell them was like, before you go spend 15 grand on a UI person, draw it on a piece of paper or a napkin and show your customer. It costs you 10 cents. Right. Yep. And I see people spending, it's so crazy how much money people will spend when they're so far from product market fit. They have no clue. And it's nuts. So in May of 2020, April 2020, I started Bluecycle. I'm gonna tell you what we kind of turned into instead of like the whole journey, but we've kind of evolved into like doing 4 or 5 things all around the topic of security operations maturity. So like, am I allowed to swear in the show?
A little bit. Depends on the swear words.
Okay, then I'm not going to swear.
Okay.
I have a potty mouth. So we go into enterprises and we help them make better. Make better, like 10 years of like poor purchasing decisions, absence of process. Like one of the common themes these days is like you might have had 3 CISOs in the past 10 years and everyone had their religions to products, but they never actually took like Edward was saying earlier, like he likes to figure out what the goal is and then kind of back into it. Like they never like go and do that critical thinking around, hey, well, if we need to build a SOC, well, what are we actually trying to protect? What are our assets? What are the threats we have? All that kind of stuff. And so we'll go in and we usually start with an advisor engagement. That usually pretty quickly leads into some security data pipeline work, because that's usually one of the low-hanging fruit these days in SecOps. So we do like we've kind of worked with like all the SIEMs. We work with Sentinel, we work with Splunk, we work with like everything that's out there. I'll tell you why that's cool as a Microsoft partner in a minute. But like my first SIEM was Alien Vault OSSIM back in like 2005, and I actually saw the founder at RSA last week. It was crazy. I'd never met him in person. So then we do a lot of work around like on the left of the SIEM where not like things are better today than they were 4 years ago, but we've written a lot of Python and Golang and sensors to get data into the SIEM more effectively. In some cases, we're trying to cheat the system and filter out data before it goes in. Pribble's a good solution for that, which I'm sure you guys have heard of that. We also have we've done things like built Sentinel plugins for security vendors. So we're kind of like a security consulting company, but we happen to be developers. So that's led us into this world of 2 more things. We have what I call as an integration factory for security vendors. So going back to product market fit, when you start a company, usually the founder sells the first $1 to $2 million of product, and then you start to hire a sales team. Hopefully you hire product people before you hire the sales team. It doesn't always happen that way. But then the sales guys come in and all of a sudden they need 50 integrations. Well, we've probably shipped like over 1,000 instances of integrations in the past few years. And so we have a catalog of integrations that are 80% complete that we go and plumb into your security product. So we're able to accelerate their time to integration. And I'll make an observation. So if you remember when SOAR first came out, SOAR is like the hub, and then you had all these vendors around the wheel. Well, you still have SOAR and SOAR is still a hub, but you're starting to see, I said this 3 years ago, but you're starting to see vendors integrate along the wheel. So like Microsoft's integrating with some random firewall vendor. Microsoft, it doesn't have to go back to the SOAR to integrate. So integrations are now table stakes for a lot of security vendors because it's a data problem, right? You need to get access to the data, you need to make things happen. And so we have this little, I used to call it a niche offering, but it's kind of taken off. Like, we can come in and help a vendor once they have found PMF or product market fit, we can kind of go help them scale their integrations. And then finally, about 16 months ago, we've been doing a lot of Sentinel work and a lot of like Sentinel Content Hub development. And I stumbled across the Microsoft Partner Program, and I started to realize the value in the program for partners. And it was also a great channel for us to get a lot of our expertise that we're getting at the top of the market and start to bring it down market. So we started we had been signed up for years, but we started actually taking it seriously. We got 5 of our designations in like 11 months. So all the ones except the business one. And we're now well on our way into, we'll have 3 of the 4 security specializations in May or June. We have a couple of modern work ones. We're going for the DevOps one. But we kind of see this holy trinity of like Defender, Purview, and Intune is like the 3 things you need to really do zero trust well. And so that's why we started delving into the modern work stuff. But so since we've got in to the program, we're now like on the track to being a managed partner. We're co-signing Microsoft, doing all the things you're supposed to do as a partner. It's been a very interesting journey. I've learned a lot. I've even taken that to the level of, like I said earlier, I mentor a lot of startups, and in some cases, I'm an advisor for startups, and I'm helping a lot of startups that are essentially ISVs figure out how to go take advantage of the Microsoft Partner Program earlier, to start figuring out how to co-sell earlier, and the different levers, like how to incentivize the sales team to go work with you, because you kind of have to prime the channel before the channel works for you. But I'm starting to helping them think about that whole big picture, and if they wait 2 years, it's going to be too late for them because someone else will figure it out. So I'll stop there. That was a very long introduction.
Damn.
But,
I like a good informative readout.
Did he answer your question, Edward?
I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing that I have to say.
Of course.
So I'm also an entrepreneur in residence at Lytical Ventures, which is a VC fund in New York. We invest in cyber, ML, and AI, sometimes inclusively, sometimes exclusively. And I've been doing that since right around when I started Bluecycle. And that's fascinating for me because as a product founder, I've been lucky enough to be a CISO. I've been lucky enough to be a founder. And now I've gotten to see how a VC fund works from the inside and get that experience. And then I also am part of a group in upstate New York called the UVC 50, where it's like 50 of us who try to give back to the entrepreneur community in upstate New York and just help founders get out of their own way, help give them advice, help make connections, things like that.
Very cool. You were listing all the back office stuff that you were getting done to get solution designation, all these other things. What about did you get your application in for MISA?
Not yet, because we're not at MSSP, nor are we an ISV.
Oh, purely consulting.
So we do build things that, for our clients, that if we ship that for us would be an ISV. But we're basically, I think, gonna get cut off at CSI. Like that'll be where we kind of stop because we're not an MSSP. Okay. But I'm Mr. Edge Case. I never fit right into exactly what everyone wants to do. But I enable MSSPs, I enable ISVs, I enable the enterprise. If that answers your question.
Okay. You got to be an edge case to be a Sabres fan these days, JP.
Got to be. Miguel, you want to go back and reintroduce yourselves to everybody on our listener show?
Well, I was going to introduce myself as Mr. Edge Case, but that's already taken. So, I'm just your run-of-the-mill cyber OG's been working cybersecurity since right around the year 2000, and mostly as an investigator going in before a lot of these security companies even existed. And my expertise is like talking to victims and dealing with victims and looking at the commonalities of things that happen during a breach. So if you're talking about cybersecurity, you're talking about a breach or something like that, my ears are going to perk up. Right. The only thing that's more interesting to me than cybersecurity is if I hear the growl of a V12, naturally aspirated V12, and that I'm like, okay, so everybody stop talking. There's a V12 driving by. But other than that, it's cybersecurity, and then probably next is going to be like guns, pistols, anything related to firearms. So just a word on me. I'm really interested in Bluecycle and kind of like I checked out the website before joining. Really interested in the work that you guys are doing with Blue Teams. And some of the things that I really liked about what you were talking about, JB, was that you're talking about the difficult questions that need to be asked at the beginning part. They're really easy to go by that, right? Because there's so many essential or urgent things that need to get done that you forget sometimes to do the important things. So, I'm really going to be I'm looking forward to hearing some of your ideas about like the meaningful things that need to be done from a Blue Team standpoint. Like, where do you see, what are the biggest challenges in the mindset of the defenders that you see when you walk into some place that needs your assistance? So I'm interested in that thought process for you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there's two mindsets. One mindset is we don't have any money, we're understaffed. We don't know why this alert was set. And then there's the mindset of that's kind of like everyone below the security poverty line and maybe even a little bit above the security poverty line. I love that term because it really communicates the fact.
I know the first time I've heard it, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. All right. Let's do it.
Well, it really communicates the fact that most companies are at a disadvantage today.
Yeah.
And in some cases they're choosing to be at a disadvantage. In other cases, they literally can't afford to level the playing field. And smart only gets you so far. You can have smart, but if you don't have process, which is not cheap, even if it's an automated process, it's still expensive to go and execute on that. And to build the right processes, they take time and iteration. So I think the way I'm going to answer your question is that the most common thing that I see is that companies go and they install all these tools. There's not necessarily a reason for installing those tools other than we obviously need firewalls. We obviously need DSPM for AI. We obviously need this. It's so obvious. And always, but there's no critical RFI process that says, hey, well, here's our current stack. Here's how these tools might integrate into our stack. Here's how, a great one is, does the tool actually give us logs that we need? And this might not be in security. This might be in the business. So something I started talking about 10 years ago that I hope the people I advised who did this, because they're in a better position today, is procurement. Procurement is a great stopgap to stop crap from coming in the door. So if you're a hospital and you need to go buy a medical device, well, usually by the time the medical device gets acquired, that's when security finds out about it. And they find out that they bought something with Windows NT embedded, it can't get upgraded, right? And they bought it in 2023, right? But this is real life. This is what happens. And so by putting that blocker in procurement, for example, and giving security at least the ability to risk accept it instead of it just showing up. So that's a total tangent, but it's like a nugget that I think is really important, that if you can influence your purchasing department and have a security step in that process, security evaluation, you can at least mitigate or lower the pain of a lot of problems that you might experience otherwise.
I would love to double click on that, not to use corporate jargon, but I cut my teeth in the world of, they indoctrinated me, and by they, I mean InfoSec, the hospital IT side, and they made damn sure to get in my noggin, we as in the cyber folks, we're not accepting risk, right? We are not the ones that are accepting it. We are informing, we are evaluating, and the business accepts the risk. And my goodness, day in, day out, if anyone ever said a whiff of anything other than that exact statement, it was a whole, now we had a drill, right? Now it's it was like a Full Metal Jacket. It was like, this is my job. Who is accepting the risk? So I just want to shout out to the hospitals I worked at, not that I was institutionalized. I'm just saying I worked on the other side. And I just wanted to, I'm a funny guy.
That's good insight.
This is a serious tool though, because when you make the department or the leader that's buying something sign off on the fact that he's now exposing you folks to the internet for a critical device, well, all of a sudden that gives them pause.
Right.
And actually, do I actually want to be the person whose name, when we get breached, who comes up as the person that said this is okay?
Yeah.
And
you need the accountability. You need the accountability, non-repudiation. It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And always CC yourself on those emails.
Print it off, frame it. Yeah, absolutely.
So anyways, what people started doing was they have this random stack and they never actually figured out, does this stack give me the telemetry I need to detect the risks that I need to detect or detect the actions that's going on?
Right.
And so, go back 15 years ago and everyone bought a SIEM. They just started throwing, spraying logs at it and hoping for the best. And here we are 15 years later. And every day I see a SOC that is they're at their budget. They can't write another $1 million check to expand their SIEM.
But it drives ACR for Azure, so my stock price goes up. We appreciate it.
For the third time this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I start to talk about is flipping that design on its head, and I start to ask people, well, what risk are you actually trying to be aware of here? And so I like to describe the process as you have threat modeling and you have crown jewels and any other risk the business has identified. Those drive one or more security use cases. A security use cases drives N+1 detection engineering use cases. Detection engineering use cases drives your your log ingest requirements. So you kind of design right to left and then you implement left to right. Now, look, that's way easier said than done. Most folks can't even get to the end of their alerts in a day, much less design thinking like that or design a process like that. But in the future, in the future, I'm not sure how else we're going to start to isolate like this. Like there should just be so much noise. We gotta to be able to know what we're looking for, or at least the ability to detect anomalies. And there's all this crazy technology out right now that's doing really interesting things. But at the end of the day, the technology can't risk accept for you. The technology, you can't just put a piece of technology in and it just doesn't go away. You still need to trust but verify everything that's going on. So where I see really mature teams going is they're in some part of the journey of what I just described. And what's really interesting, I've actually designed processes for SOCs to do this. And when you think of it that way, there's actually KPIs and metrics all the way down. So I can have a KPI to like, hey, this is how we design this use case to protect against misuse cases against this cloud database. This is the telemetry we need. This is how like every time now we know how many for every security that we get from that use case, like what was the percentage of false positives? What was the percentage of true positives? That can trickle down and get reporting out the KPIs. And then like ingest reporting is a little different where it's more like, it's kind of like a knock use case than a SOC use case, but you still need that kind of stuff. But you actually have the ability to measure how you're doing all the way across and then start to improve over time. So it's hard. It takes an investment, but you got to start somewhere.
Well, that answered my question. I didn't think that it wouldn't, to be frank. I'm almost afraid to ask a second question. No, I'm not. No, I'm not at all.
Isn't Copilot supposed to fix all this? Generative AI, security AI. You're right about one thing. These agentic AI models and tech, they can't accept risk. They have no sense of consequence. I have a sense of consequence, right? If you go out and do something called a mortgage, a few other things, right? And so you have to sit here and leverage your experience being able to do it. But, on that, in your business, I see that you are a process improver, solution, creator and all this. What do you see? Because the conversation is ridiculous now. You have to say it. Where is AI in your realm of where you go about your business? Is it a detriment, enablement, or is it just a neutral aspect in the way you go about your business, JP?
It depends on the user. It depends on the business. So
I couldn't quite say if you said it depends on the user or it depends on the loser.
Either one. So I think that I think to the masses, what we're seeing adoption in the masses is still this black box or it's still this black magic, right? Like I don't know many people who are outside of tech that can just go and interact with a Copilot prompt like super effectively. They might be able to get it to do some basic things, but they're not prompt engineers.
Yep.
I think in the security side, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I think it's really good at summarization. I can't go to Copilot and say, it can't answer the why do I care part yet,
right?
If it's not summarizing.
Yeah.
So like that business context. So whenever I look at someone's pitch deck, I say, why do I care? And then a lot of people don't answer that. But so I go back. So when I introduce an AI tool to a security team, or I say, hey, you should check this out. The first thing is, why do I care? But right now, the agent can't necessarily give me an answer back and tell me why I care. It might be able to give me some references, but it can't go and figure out the business context every time for what it's showing me. So to me, that's the big gap right now.
I would even argue that even if it could, a lot of times it's the prompt engineering. It doesn't understand the context of why it matters to you, the individual, your company. You have to tailor it and prime it with information like I'm primarily focused on exposure management in the cloud or my on-prem or whatever context. It's just a model. It doesn't know your environment until you tell it. So even if it does give you that context, it's often wrong without prompt engineering.
So
Well put.
I agree. And I think individual folks that are building agents and LLMs, they're not product managers. They find a use case, they get it done, but they're not always sure. Like I don't know if this is a solvable problem right now. Like if I've done a lot with security copilot, but I found every edge case I could possibly find. I'm Captain Edge Case. I wanted to do a set of things that is wired to my brain, but it doesn't know my brain. So I have to teach it my brain. And to me, that's like this extra step. And so I see a lot of security engineers like, well, I just want to go ask this thing and I want it to magically do it. I'm like, well, that's not really how the technology works. But that's that's what I lead with. And then I get, smacked back into reality. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to kind of like give it some context. But so I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm seeing some really, so I think deep learning is having a renaissance. I'm starting to see a lot of interesting applications. We're combining like LLMs with deep learning in the back end to do analysis of things. I'm starting to see some interesting applications with ML to like figure out log like schemas on the fly. So I know I kind of answered your question, and I went off on 5 tangents. But okay. I think we're all hopeful, but we've also been there before with like the latest holy grail. And so I think that if I look back to like 10 years ago, there's things that didn't exist 10 years ago. They're not part of my daily life, but they didn't happen overnight. It was like it was a very slow, methodical march. And then you look back and like, oh wow, like Discord, or whatever, like it was there, it was in the background, and now it's a daily tool. And so I think that's kind of how it's going to go down.
How do you see this? You're taking your perspective on current state. How do you see this evolving the current SIEM market?
I'm not sure yet. So I'm still kind of post-processing RSA and everything I saw. I think that there is. I almost would ask the question: is it going to change the SOAR market, or is it going to change the SIEM market, or the SOAR market? And is SOAR still a product, or is it just a feature? So I think I counted like 18 agentic SOC tools at RSA. So and those are just the ones I know about. Like I know for a fact there's only like 70 SOAR companies at this point. I kind of stopped following the SOAR market really closely, but like 2 years ago there's 50, and I've probably seen at least 10 or 15 more. I think that again, I think most of them, nobody's convinced me that they're doing anything other than summarizing and combining some expert system capabilities. Yeah.
Man, that is a pragmatic, realistic look at what the value we're actually getting out of these is. It's interesting.
I was surprised as you say that the number of SOAR companies have increased. I just, my mind that programmed that you were going to say that it has decreased, because it does seem as though now SOAR is more of a feature set that needs to be included in your product, whether it's inherent to the product's genome or a solution that's, side by side. The SOAR product in Sentinel is an Azure feature, right? It's not a Sentinel feature. Logic's app is an Azure aspect, right? I really thought the SOAR market would have been gone. What was the last really relevant SOAR market? What, Hexagon? The one that Microsoft acquired.
Hexabyte?
Yes.
Oh, come on, man. There's relevant SOAR vendors after that.
Well, I mean, when you look at them, maybe they didn't spend enough money because everybody was so hyper, fixated on EDR, AI, and all this other stuff, right? I don't run in those circles like you do about which SOAR product is out doing what. Since we're on that tangent, though, what makes a good SOAR company? For someone to adopt it as a standalone aspect of their security toolset and operations. Would you go out and buy a SOAR company right now? If you had to go buy a SOAR company right now, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Here's Here's $150 million. Go buy me a SOAR company so I can bolt this thing onto my processes, my product. What'd you do?
So if I were to buy the company or buy like an instance of the product?
Let's start with that's cheaper. Let's buy an instance.
Okay, so while you were talking, my mind goes in a totally different direction. So let me drop something on you to think about, well, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
So look at what Entra has done as an identity control plane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, SOAR wanted to be that for security orchestration. It wanted to be a control plane for security orchestration. That was like that was the promise. Okay. I don't believe that any of the SOARs have actually fulfilled that promise in a secure, just freaking works way.
It would be
SOAR has you know what doesn't have a last mile problem? Entra. Unless I'm trying to do hybrid. It does not have a last mile problem. It just freaking works. Like I can do stuff like conditional access. I can do which is kind of orchestration.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
I can so look at what Entra did and how they. But actually, I'll give you a more ridiculous example. The original orchestration vendor was HubSpot.
Mm.
HubSpot got marketing salespeople to use a piece of software. And they got marketing and salespeople to put data in to automate workflows. Who hates that? Salespeople. They do not want to go into your thing and do anything. But they were able to take a very similar, like how many sales guys that can't wait to get home and do all this data entry, right? Yeah. They're at the bar, right?
Right.
but I'm serious. So this is where SOAR failed, and I was part of that problem. And so how many people can't wait to go and fix their SOAR playbook? Like I can wait, right? Yeah. The last mile problem in SOAR is ridiculous, and I would love to see AI fix that, but what's going to get in the way of that is vendors who can't get along and come up with standards.
Definitely.
And it's not adaptive either. It looks like a lot of people can feign it to make it seem as though there's adaptive SOAR based on activities and intelligence in it. It's still not there yet because there's still not a huge amount of trust to make arbitrary and non-human interactive decisions with it. We're trying with AI, right? But like I said, AI doesn't have the fear of a pink slip or a catastrophic line of business operation disruption. It just does not exist, right? It's just there to please. But I like I say, I don't run in those realms of it. And once you start drinking the Kool-Aid here at the big house, you only see
the big house,
right? And that's what happens. But okay, you can buy an instance. I'll give you $1 million. I'll take 149 back. I'll keep it in my pocket.
Well, look, so there's value in SOAR, but what I learned was that SOAR is best in high value, low risk use cases.
High value, low risk cases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And think about it. Deconstruct high value.
I'm not going to have SOAR cut off an E901 center because I got a ping.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
But I might quarantine the janitor.
Well, when you look at it, SOAR is sort of like embedded into everything. You made a great point with Entra. Conditional access is a form of SOAR, right? You put it into conditions to be able to go do these things, and it looks at these conditions and policies and decide to play the Dungeons and Dragons. Do you take path left? Do you take path right? Do you pick up +2 SOAR and do this right here, right? So I find it now you will make me do some homework to go see which SOAR companies out there are relevant, because you made a great point by saying maybe they're creating these offering solutions, intellectual property to be acquired or to have an instance purchase and then eventually be brought on, right?
Well, we don't have enough time to talk about strategic ways to build a company and get sold and extract value out of the market.
But it sounds like you want to host a theme month. How to start a security company.
That would have to be a whole other. I have a pitch. I have a deck that's called "How Not to Do a Security Company." That I've given that talk at conferences, and I just take the kimono off and show and tell the whole story of my old company and all the because the iceberg picture, you only see the good stuff at the top, but there's all the stuff underneath that happened.
Oh yeah,
right. that you don't hear about. But so like, look, like if I think of the SOAR market, like we're in, like I have a thesis that I kind of formed with a buddy of mine a long time ago, which was Gen 1 SOAR was like the Phantom, the Demisto, the Syncurity, the Swimlane, the ones that essentially were largely handwritten integrations, UI around an event-driven orchestration system. Sometimes, so Gartner defined SOAR back in the 2010s as threat intel, orchestration, automation, and case management. So that was like Gartner's 4 pillars of SOAR. And so if you didn't do those 4 things, you weren't technically SOAR. So then we're kind of like full on into SOAR Gen 2, which is, there's a little bit of AI, there's a co-pilot in your SOAR. There might be some automation around like doing inference on log schemas and things like that. But you still have to trust but verify the product. Mm-hmm. Our thesis in 2018 was that eventually, who are the only people who've actually done orchestration at scale? The hyperscalers. So we believe at some point it's going to be the AWS, GCP, Azure that actually have the. I did it backwards on purpose.
Hey, what you missing one?
Spence was there.
You probably lurking. You missing Oracle.
Don't make me say that. Don't make me say the O word.
I do. You gotta see it.
You got Oracle. Well, actually, they have a lot of traction in government these days. But I've built in whatever an OCI. I built an AMI on Oracle Cloud.
Oh, cool.
Over 8 years ago. I'll put it that way. But anyways, I don't know who else has the money to go actually build real orchestration. Like the only people other than that are actually doing real orchestration at crazy scale are the hyperscalers. So our thesis is that eventually SOAR is going to be native functionality in the hyperscalers or other very large companies.
Oh, I love this
insight. And it'll be very much like that. But hey, so
I got to follow up if you don't mind. So like, okay, all right, cool. So we're talking about the hyperscalers. Edward talked about being a part of the big house. How do you feel the E5 offering competes against the security industry broadly today? I mean, it's kind of like one of the best bundles you can own, right? And if you're a Scott Galloway podcast fan, it's a reoccurring bundle of services, right? Like it's like Microsoft's got everybody
Scott Galloway.
Yeah, isn't he great? Yeah.
Can we just have a moment of silence for Scott Galloway? He's awesome.
He's awesome.
So I think it's very compelling. I think as the economy is in question, it's going to become more compelling. So I said this 15 times last week. I need to do a slide and get actual numbers. But my guesstimate is that in order to just get the security functionality you get in the E5, so like the all the Entra security, the Defender for everything, and Purview, I believe that would be about $110, $120 a la carte a month. Damn. If you went to the open market and tried to buy all that functionality at the quality that is in an E5 today.
And probably much more because you're assuming that the billing models are as such that you could buy an individual like that, whereas the E5 is tied to an entity, which is supposed to be a biological person, right?
No, I appreciate that. But also, you don't get productivity.
Right. That's the other thing. Exactly. And that's why it's like Microsoft figured out how to become a monopoly again. After the 90s, and they're not the ones going to antitrust cases right now. So look, I wonder why. It's because we're armed with good lawyers.
If I'm a CISO or CIO, I like every one of my clients right now is like they're doing the worst, better, best scenarios on their 2025 budgets.
Yeah. Right,
and their 2026 budgets. And you know who wins in all 3 scenarios in E5? Because everyone else is raising prices, or you need a new technology because AI is out or whatever, which E5 kind of covers you in some parts of that, and it's really compelling to explore it.
I think that's the compelling thing, not because I drink the Kool-Aid at Big House, but when you look at something, CAS, client attention span. You run out of the ability for a client to be able to reason about what's going to be your best value when you have so many products coming into your house. I think you've seen the slide deck when you as a red teamer, I didn't attack your product, right? I attacked the lack of integration and lack of insight in your product, right? The noise or the quiet noise, right? So some people still have that old moniker, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Well, that's that thing no longer applies. You'll see some serious competitors to the Microsoft E5 security platform only on that side, not the telemetry and collaboration. Palo Alto did not fight the funk. Palo Alto started making these acquisitions and putting their stuff together, and that's the closest it looked like. You would think it would be Google. They're not. Google can't get out of their own way, right?
Yeah.
And they should be a serious contender. I told someone else that a serious contender would have been AWS had they bought Splunk. I don't have no idea how Cisco bought them, right? I don't know what that was.
Man,
but, yeah.
I have like 20 opinions right now. Okay. Let's compare. Let's compare the Wiz acquisition to the GitHub acquisition. So, I don't think I don't know Microsoft insider stuff, but my guess is that while GitHub wasn't a financial success for Microsoft, it was still a success because they own part of the ecosystem that's very influential on developers. On the flip side, how many GitHub customers just overnight became Microsoft Azure shops? Not many, because they already had religion. They already had a whole stack built on stuff. Do you think people are going to say, oh, Wiz went over to Google, so I must buy Google Cloud?
No.
Like,
Absolutely
no.
not.
So what's their play?
They
name.
They needed to have a platform play because they saw that. I won't say 100-yard dash. I'm a distance runner. I would say in the mile on the second lap around, they started seeing Microsoft pull away, and they started seeing companies like Palo Alto who came from a small college, let's say big college, small college. This small college runner is naturally keeping up, right? And now this guy that went to this powerhouse track school cannot keep up. So you go out and recruit this star runner, and now your star runner is being found out. I was given a conference, and we don't bash other. I'm not here to bash other products. Google's a great company.
I will.
Diminish your tone.
The guy in the hockey jersey.
But
I'll bash other teams.
With a jet jersey on it. That jet scene.
Hey, this is a blue light, by the way. This beer is a blue light, not a Bud Light, dude.
It's a blue light from like a Labatt blue light. Yeah,
it's just my camera's not really. You can see.
There you go.
But,
Labatt Blue was named after the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
We love to get you back on the show. It's not too much off the rails to go with. Leadership, thought processes around what you were seeing in the industry. We've had our fair share of CISOs and CIOs come on the show. That might be another thing. Security thought leadership. And that's including the big wigs at Microsoft. Hands come on, Vasu, Maria, and all the Ritus come on, recognize. But I think we need to be people outside of Microsoft and say, hey, what do you think about these acquisitions? Whether you're a consumer of the product that was acquired or you were thinking about it, because I said it at a presentation that I gave last week. People were worried about the acquisition of Wiz by Google. I said, don't sweat that. Give it a month. They can't get out of their own way. They can't get out of their own way, right? You'll do something. But they're trying to create, what do they call it? The Google security something or another. But regardless of that, the E5.
I'm just going to get annoyed.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get annoyed thinking about I don't understand the strategy. Like the word in the street RSA was like, well, I guess I have 3 years to replace Wiz. Like that was what I heard CISO saying. And another player will come out, they'll replace the functionality. Maybe it's Defender for Cloud will take up part of the market. Maybe what's that company? Lacework imploded. And Lacework didn't implode because they imploded. They imploded because there's some pretty crafty plays going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like when the Wiz CEO comes out and announces, well, it looks like Sentinel 1, they failed Sentinel 1 in diligence. Their value plummeted. They went from 32 billion valuation or 20 billion valuation to a 7 billion valuation overnight because they failed diligence at Sentinel 1. There was some really crafty stuff going on behind the scenes. When I say you want to talk about how to extract value out of the market, some really smart people executed the Wiz thing.
Yeah. And it's what we may see as a market failure is actually a measure of success or a measure of failure or a measure of lack of success. I don't believe you can ever fail unless you choose not to try again or you don't get opportunity to try again. There's no failure. You just got to go do it again.
So can I throw a wrench in your theme?
Okay.
Please do.
Okay. So Scott Galloway, I'll make a reference again, defines a platform as a software stack that has consumers and producers. So you need to have you have like the Xbox itself. You then have game developers, and they build games. Microsoft takes a cut, or you get a cut of that, and then you have people that go buy the games, and you buy sessions and all that. So there's a whole ecosystem. But what's been interesting in I'll keep going on this analogy, and Birdie will see where I'm going in a second, is that not many games are exclusive to the Xbox.
Right.
Not yet.
But they've decoupled the game from the console or from the platform.
Yeah.
So I actually think platformization is good to a point, but it actually becomes very dangerous to the consumer or the company over time. So
people will buy a PlayStation just for one game. They'll go right, or buy Xbox for just one game. That happened.
I have a Switch just to play Mario Brothers and Zelda.
Exactly.
And there's going to be, there will always be a little bit of the platform surface that is consumer friendly to avoid the bean counters and the legitters that want to come in and go, hey, you guys are trying to create a pseudo market here, because you can run Xbox on Amazon Fire Stick now. And it actually runs pretty fast, right? You got a good bandwidth, right? If you run on the X-Cube, it's really fast. You get an Ethernet connection to it. I see where you're going, though. You're absolutely right, where it gets to the point where you start having market domination. Yeah.
So the way I look at security analytics is there's 5 core capabilities you need. You need ingest. You need transform, routing, filtering, reduction. You need detections or queries. You need storage. And you need analytics. I believe, and I tell my customers, that you should never have more than 2 of those functionalities, maybe 3, but usually 2 in one product. So here's why. If I'm all in Splunk, if I'm all in Sentinel, if I'm all in any SIEM, and I actually lose control of my data because I cannot replay data easily out of Sentinel into an incident responder tool. I cannot take it out of Sentinel and go do audits on it, or Splunk or whatever. So I've said for 15 years that SIEM is where your events go to die, because they get transformed. They're not the original events. So I believe that you should have a data pipeline or data processing tool that can not only send a raw copy, like a lossless raw copy, to like blob storage, which is way cheaper, which can not only serve my replay needs, but can also serve my retention needs, my compliance needs. So I have a system of archive or system of record.
Yeah.
And then I can then send it to N+1 destinations.
Right.
So that could be send it to Synapse for ML and AI, send it to Sentinel or ADX for analysis, send it to Power BI to do vulnerability stuff.
Right.
The whole key here is that as long as I have a copy in Blob Store that's the original log, I can always go ask questions that have data later that I don't know what the question is that I have, and for a way cheaper price.
You don't get vendor locked, right? You don't get locked into that format, right? I
don't get locked into a vendor.
You are on the same page with that, sir. And I'm starting to see startup companies look at it that way. That why can't I send you my logs and you rationalize them with your security intelligence and drop the logs? Why do I have to store them there? Well, I can keep the original here. And if I do need to go back and do long tail and do some analysis, I can do it. There are startups that are trying to do that. The big 4 are doing it. I can't sort of talk about a lot of it, but Google should have really been in front of everybody with their Chronicle data lake. They really should have been in front of this, right? And you start to see Microsoft perhaps adopting the same thing. Heard rumors that Oracle's trying to do this. You do data ingest based on the analytics, the data that's needed to do the threat analytics that you need, where it will pull the data and what it needs to do its job, rather than you send the data than it does its job. And I think you're right on that. Why would I need to put this in your repository for me to do it, where I can just send it to you, you run it through the meat grinder and just discard whatever you need. Now I have it, And if I do need to go do an investigation on that alert, I have the source data to be able to go do the analytics against it, right? But then you look at the problem is a lot of these companies are making huge amounts of money on data repository and, for lack of a better word, storage, right?
Yep.
But
that's getting disrupted right now.
Will that flip? Because the cost of I haven't bought a hard drive in how long? When the last time someone bought some storage? You can get a 50 terabyte drive for what, $1,000, if that. More than 50, no, 100 terabytes.
You gotta get NVMe though. But yeah, I feel you, Edward. I
You get where I'm going, but you were right on point of it. I was watching some trends on that, and TLDR is like, yeah, why should I have to send it there and store it there? Why not me send it there, see their alert, and then if I got something that's a hit, I can run the same intelligence on premise where the data is ultimately residing in the very beginning, and I can just look at it.
Yeah, so you're actually throwing a spin to it that I haven't thought of before, because I'm always thinking like, so look at what it costs to ingest into Sentinel, and then it's like what, like MSRP like $4 a gig, like probably most people get it for like $250 a gig, but okay, what's it cost to store a gig in Azure Blob for a month for 90 days? Like a penny, right? Maybe 2 pennies. Okay, so all of a sudden I just sold the CFO, right? So like if I have to ingest stuff in the Sentinel, but then I let it expire after 90 days or into Splunk because their cloud archive storage is like ridiculously overpriced. But if I'm sending it to Blob Store and I need to do investigation in month 14, I just go replay it back into my SIEM.
Right. Why not?
And it's like it just happened. And I didn't have to spend this. Right, I can bend the cost curve. I can also bend, but the decoupling actually buys me agility, and it all like that agility is huge.
There are some deliberate technology deltas that prevent you from doing what you said, and that's why the vendor doing it. The tables don't manifest.
I'm doing it all the time. What are you talking about?
Well,
I'm saying if we're doing that,
I can't. I work at this place, right? Some people may see it, so you get it. But I get what
But if I decouple it and I take a copy before I send it in, I still have control over it, even if it's an Azure block, right? So like what I'm starting to smell though is I think the holy grail is going to be storing data in Blob Store, Index Blob Store, which can be accessed by Azure Synapse and by Sentinel and ADX, because I can put it in one repository. I can do ML and AI on it, and I can also do my security analytics on it. And remember, security analytics is the most expensive place. Analytics is the most expensive place to keep your data.
Right. It is, and you and I need to have a talk offline. The difference too. I want to pick your brain on something. So, but hey, cool. This has been super interesting, man. If someone needs a consulting company to come in, rather just install a widget, install a product, I would highly suggest that you give Bluecycle a look to, because you got a thinker over here who wants to do it. One last question before we go.
That's allowed.
This is the last question.
I've heard that before.
You sort of remind me of a company that started out like you, but they sort of, I don't know, the commoditized company for the stuff they do. How familiar are you with SOC Prime?
I know them.
That I believe that's how they sort of thought about where they were going with it, but you're much older than they are, because you started your company in 2018. You said 2019?
2020.
2020, yeah. I was warning. I was like, I wonder if you do SOC Prime-ish type stuff. They're pretty good. I know those guys over there. They're not bad for some of the stuff that they do.
So what's the question?
The question
is, that's always the question.
Do you operate in the same manner where you come in and provide some of those same consultative things and these query deals and stuff like that in your optimization at SOC Prime?
Well, we're not a detection engineering company.
Okay.
We consult on approaches to the detection engineering lifecycle.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting space because A, there's not parity across query languages. B, there's some problems with Sigma, like in its core, that a few companies have forked it to like unfork it to fix it. So it actually works in a scalable fashion. But the process of going from like KQL to Splunk won't always get you the same KQL when you go from Splunk to KQL. Okay. Right. So it's not like it's not a hash.
All right.
What's the word? I'm trying to throw a crypto analogy and I'm just going to stop. But it's not a function that returns the same thing every time.
Yeah. Right. It's not like an exchange rate where I take one Splunk crypto coin and I send it over to KQL and I get 1, but when I send it back to Splunk, I get 0.98. When I take that same one and send it back, I get 0.96. Go up to something.
It's not like DNA. It's like DNA, right?
Yeah. Every time you keep slicing it, you get slower. But I just want to ask a question. It seemed like you guys sort of came from that background a little bit and doing those things.
Well, here's what I like about it. If you go back 10 years ago, detection engineering was in private IRC channels, right? It was, you kind of, if you knew, you knew. If you knew, you were part of the time, part of a group that shared information. Now, and back then, companies used to think that detections were IP, but they started to realize that now it's actually better for us to all share what's going on. But that doesn't mean that companies actually know how to consume and behave that way. So like the latest Palo Alto exploit comes out, like why should every company have to write a detection to detect that, right? So having it just centralized and streamlined makes a lot of sense. I think the challenge is it's just like nobody knows how to buy threat intel. The people writing detections for SOC Prime or any of these companies, they're writing generalist detections. The cost to write business-specific detections, which is what businesses need with business context, just like what we were talking about with AI, a detection with no business context doesn't necessarily help me. It just tells me that someone's grandma was on the Wi-Fi and used Napster. Who cares, right? It doesn't tell me that I have a medical device system here that if it gets attacked can like kill somebody. Like SOC Prime doesn't have that context. So that's where like the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. And to knock threat intel for a second, most companies, most buyers buy the whole feed when they should be going to a threat intel provider. Said, hey, I have this business context. Give me what's relevant to me.
Right.
Nobody does that. I don't understand why.
Not. You're right. Nobody does that. Everybody's promising it. Everybody's promising that it's coming, right? But promises plus whatever else gets you a cup of coffee.
But most CISOs want less alerts, not more. If I get a new feed that's not contextual to my business, I've actually just written checks to deal with stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Every alert is a blank check, right?
Yeah, it's like getting a vaccine for a disease that doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah.
I'm getting a vaccine just in case. We'll see, right?
And JP,
Sorry, Rick was going to say something.
I was going to say, the reference of companies thinking that detections are IP. I'm starting to see that with AI in terms of prompts, where folks are saying, "Oh, it's our prompt engineering is critical." My thought is, all somebody has to do is reverse engineer that. That prompt is not intellectual property. It's human words. And so if somebody can come up with something in reverse engineer, they can use AI to come up with a very similar prompt, and they've just cloned it without stealing your IP.
Right.
Yeah. It's no different than code, though. It's really sticky. It's no different than code. Like every line of code I write for my business is copyrighted by default, right? Mm-hmm. And it's actually considered intellectual property and proprietary information. Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to go back to that. Like, you can think that all you want, but it's all about execution. If somebody wants the answer, enough, they'll go figure it out. Yeah. So, you might like I don't think you're giving somebody, like, if I were able to write like a prompt book in Security Copilot, I can't imagine a prompt book that I can write that would take somebody else 5 years to figure out.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the whole idea of IP. Is it like, IP is like, hey, this is protected because we were the unique people that come up with this unique combination of things, right? But like, I can't imagine that in a prompt book.
I think in this day and age, as we get ready to close out, I think this day and age, it'll go back to something I think you said that early on this, maybe the thing that you may find yourself being more IP is the UI, the way it looks, right? Rather than what it's doing from behind, because it's code. It's C#, it's Ruby, it's Go. It's just code. You re-engineer, but the way you manifest it may be the only thing that you can IP, right? Because this is my manifestation of the thing I'm doing in the background, and that's superficial at best, right? It's just pretty, right? It's how you interact with it.
I'm going to argue your IP is going to be your ability to give the machine context to get your own outcomes that are specific to your business.
And I think you're right on that, right? Like, getting closer to the risks that I perceive are important to me. I haven't heard people who speak very eloquently about the risk in context of the security threats, to the point that you were making earlier, right? There's just not that connection that's there. There's a huge gulf that you end up having to leap. Like, all right, these are all the problems, right? And like, problems are bad and they could impact us. And then you make that jump to, okay, yeah, these are the risks that we're going to accept. And being able to make a higher resolution picture for those folks that own the risk and whose job it is to accept those risks, I think you may have an opportunity there for IP, right? Where you can get down and you say, okay, this is how this particular vulnerability, if I were to experience it, impacts me. Like, let me put a dollar sign on that for my business, right? An ability to be able to take that risk, turn it into dollars and say, this is how these threats specifically impact these dollars for my business. I think that then you can at least articulate the value add for what you and the organization have done and make it specific to what the customer is looking for, right? So you're actually taking that, going all the way to the customer.
It's like value chain analysis. How often do you guys hear the word value chain in security? Hardly ever.
Never.
Right. Well, you're working with the big four. So yeah, but a value chain is a fascinating concept, and it speaks directly to people who like have businesses to run, to executives. It speaks directly to them. If you can tie risk into that, cyber risk into that,
there it is.
It's a way easier to get money to spend on actually mitigating those risks than if you're just like, oh, we have a bunch of things.
Yeah, rather than this FUD and this fear mongering and all that, you come in and you can talk in the language they talk about, that this is what's going to cost, if this happened, and you can articulate that with facts and numbers. You're absolutely right. I'll give you one place that did it very, very, very well, and this happened to be post-breach. It's a company that makes and sells, company that doesn't really make a whole lot, but sells a lot of home improvement products. Mm-hmm. They do it very well because they were able to articulate, if their e-commerce site went down, how much they were losing per minute, and probably could get down to the second. This is what is happening. Even if we go back to the secondary and tertiary places where we can do business, this is what it's costing us, right? And that's even they articulated if there was an inherent outage caused by lack of something that happened because of lack of change control. So they looked at risk internally first. Mm-hmm. Someone does something dumb. They turn something off, they did this rather than external. It was very comprehensive. And I learned a lot by listening to how they go about this. They had it down to when a point of sales, a cash register went down. That was a risk of revenue loss because a single cash register went down in the store, right? Mm-hmm. External and everything else. Very impressive. Then they had it based on seasonal. This is how much we lose during Christmas time, Thanksgiving time, all these things. Yeah. And rather than try to do it internally, I think they hired an external company and they probably bought that company and bring them in, right? The process of down pat, you see it, right? Everything from employee theft, right, to inadvertent theft by someone who forgot to scan something in the cart. So when you can
to a snowstorm the weekend before Christmas.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, right.
But it enables a super important question, which is how much money should our organization, given our risk posture, our risk tolerance, how much should we spend on security? How much money, how much effort, right? Like how much of our culture as far as, what we're doing in the organization to manage or to control human behavior, what should we be spending, right? Yeah. And that's going to be different for everyone.
I hear something. So I hear you talk about value chains, but what I'm realizing as you're saying it is that, like, I relate to this in startups a lot. Is like you have to make so many decisions as a leader of a startup, and you don't have all the information.
Nope.
And when you do a value chain analysis, you're able to give executives more information than they've ever had before about these situations.
Agreed.
And give it to them twice. They want it in your speak, and then they want it in their speak, and then they want there to find it. They want to find the Rosetta Stone in the middle. So, okay, what did you just tell me? How can I go take this to someone else I have to talk to this about? I'm an advocate of yours. Make me a super advocate. I got to go get your money. Give me the best story to go tell, right? Because very rarely will they allow you to come tell the story. They want to be able to take it and go tell it themselves. But this has been super informative, JP, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And
no problem. Can I give a quick pitch about what we actually do with Microsoft?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So the reason why I think we're succeeding in the ecosystem is because we not just know Microsoft, but we know all the security products out there. We know the Palos, the Googles, the whatever. We've worked with them with code. We've worked with them with ClickOps. We've worked with them at the API level, and we can help folks who are interested in migrating into Sentinel, migrate into Defender for Cloud, migrating into Defender for everything. Because we already know all these other products, we work with them also, and we're able to go and help folks get into your ecosystem without looking like we've only ever known Microsoft, because we actually know all the other stuff. But we're also a developer shop, so our understanding, like security analytics, is a data problem. You have to think like a developer to really architect and do these things right at scale. And so those are really the two big differentiators I think we have in the partner ecosystem. And we're also pretty focused on the SMCC, or the mid-market space.
Okay.
And that's where we have most of our traction. Like we do a lot of like Microsoft and non-Microsoft work, up at the strategic and enterprise level, but we like to bring it down into like, a little bit, on the edge of the poverty line, and help people come and get more value out of their existing spend. It's time to say the word poverty line again.
So thank you for that. Yeah, and you said something that when I listen to partners that I want to engage with or put in my accounts, they always say they have a consulting branch and everything, and we have a great engineering team. But when you say developers, that's where it is. Where are the developers? I got an engineering team. They're not the same thing. Where are the developers in this to be able to go out here and solution this out, right? Engineering is to take it and engineer things that may not fit. They come in like this, but I need them to fit like this so I can engineer it. But I need a developer team to be able to get this.
Here's the thing. I almost hire exclusively developers because I can teach developers to think in security use cases.
Yeah.
I can't teach security analysts to think like a developer.
True that.
At all. I had the unfortunate pleasure of having them early here at Microsoft to manage a team of developers. We were rewriting a product from ASP to .NET Core, and we got them off SQL to Cosmos DB. And developers, they think different. We'll just leave it that way. So that's a developer friend. You guys think different. Timelines.
But once you can sling code, there's like literally nothing you can't do.
Absolutely right.
It's so crazy.
To all of our listeners out there who are thinking about changing careers or doing something else, learn a language. And I don't mean French. Learn a language.
Well, it's not even learn a language, but learn programming concepts.
Learn the nuance of
vibe coding. Like vibe coding's legit. We can do vibe coding.
Vibe coding. Yeah, that's a good.
Well, here's the thing. You can vibe code your minimum viable demo all you want. But like, are you gonna like put that in an MRI machine?
I personally would not, just so everybody's clear. I can get a little dangerous with Python. I was just making a joke. I think it's democratization, right, of access to stack and just awareness. But I totally get what you're saying, JP. I liked slinging code. I thought that was quite clever as well.
Slinging code.
So one of the things about AI that I think is starting to get more exposure is that AI isn't actually smart. It just can like do a lot of freaking math to like determine this is like probably the right answer. So like that doesn't give me confidence in like necessarily like blocking the CEO's email, right? Or hooking up or like vibe coding the MRI machine. So like when you actually understand how this stuff works under the hood, or you have like which I don't, I have a clue, but I'm not an expert. But like I know enough to know that like it's actually not working like intuitively. Like making fact-based decisions is crunching a bunch of math and doing comparisons and be like, hey, after I did 8 million calculations on 3,000 GPUs, I think this.
I mean, that's what pattern recognition is, though, right? And that's what human consciousness is.
But we just got to be careful,
to be clear, I am not, my political platform is not to vibe code the MRI machine. I just want that to be, I've had so many MRIs in my time with the brain surgery and the radiation. I hope that they were also not vibe coding the gamma knife surgery. But we'll find out.
Your shirt's very appropriate for your statement.
No comment. I'm reading one of my favorite magazines, Code Magazine, which is my second favorite before they retired MSDN magazine 4 years ago. Unleashing the Power of GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio Code. Very good article. Keeps it down basic because it can teach you how to operate in developmental operating, right? Like you said, don't learn a language. You were right, very right. Don't limit yourself to that.
Well, no, I think you should learn a language, but I absolutely do. I'm just saying that what's more important to me is understanding programming concepts.
Yeah.
So like, I'll hire a guy who writes Python, but he has to go write Golang. I'll be like, dude, go figure out Golang. And he'll be like, okay, because he understands the concepts. Yeah. It's kind of like I saw in the prep notes for the show, it said, hey, well, you guys are going to ask me, like, well, what does it take to be in security? I think that was one of the things. And it was like, well, you need to have foundational IT and kind of like a system administration understanding. You need to understand how protocols work. You need to understand how networks work and systems work. And like when I went to Ross Institute of Technology, and the coolest thing was that we learned protocols, not operating systems. We learned the SMTP protocol, not Exchange. Mm-hmm. So I could run a postfix server. I could run an Exchange server. I could run I'm forgetting the other names of the old school servers, but I learned LDAP. I didn't learn Active Directory. I could then go use Active Directory because there's an implementation of LDAP. So a security person, I believe, whatever area they're going into, if you're going to network security, you need to understand those network protocols because then you have to understand how to use them to understand how people misuse them.
Yeah. Yep. And you'll understand why mail was never designed to be secure. Well, that being said, JP from Bluecycle.
I'm just going to stop talking because I can keep us going for like 9
we'll get you back on the show. We'll put you into use. You know, I need some vacation time. You want to co-host? We definitely get you on to come on and do these things. Thanks everyone.
What happened to me? It can happen to you.
We'll get you back on. It happened to Rick. Rick was on the show last week. Well, you
I had a blast.
Yeah. Thanks, JP. Really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate it.
Right. Go Jets.
Go Jets, go, baby.
You had going on, sir. So everyone, this was the first show of our partner month for 2025. Thanks so much to JP Bourget. Did I say it right?
Bourget.
See,
Bourget, s'il vous plaît.
I'm consistent. I get the name wrong with every guest. I am consistent with nothing else. For kicking off our partner month, Bluecycle. Big shout out to the Jets. Thank you, Miguel Clark, FBI retired, cybersecurity extraordinaire, for coming back on the co-host. Thanks for Rick. Collards, did I say it right?
Cutlars, but close enough.
There you go. I'm very consistent, baby. Nothing else. You know, I don't get Brody's name right either. I've known him for 3 years.
Rick's first time on the show. It's okay, right?
So we'll be back next week, same time. Maybe Rod will be here, maybe he won't. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a good one.
Take care,
everybody.
Have a good week. Thanks.